So let's talk about the Poison Tongue Cabal. I had a lot of fun with that list, but it was a lot of fun to develop the list, not just play with the list during the event. Now, one of the things that I tried to do was to build a list around a concept that my father developed, I don't know, 6 to 7 years ago, called the Law of Nines, which is dividing the total. It's like a building list, like rubric or formula, where every single segment in your list shouldn't really go over 1/9 the total value of, a ninth, etc. So at 1,500 points, you divide 1,500 points into 9 segments of 166 points. Now, this was developed for the old force organization chart, so it was like one detachment, essentially your battalion. 166 points for HQ, 166 points for elites, 166 points for fast attack, 166 points for heavy support, then 4 segments in troops, because you want to make sure you have enough troops, and then 1 floater segment, the 9th segment, that you could kind of put wherever you wanted. If you wanted more fire support, heavy support. Wanted to be more elite, in elites. Wanted another HQ, heavies. In HQ. So you could kind of do whatever you wanted with that. So that's essentially the theory behind that list specifically. And so in order to do that, I had to restrict myself to one detachment, one battalion detachment. And that was probably the hardest part, because not only are you losing out on your number of command points, but at the same time, I felt that it really helped because of that fact. I had a lot more troops, I had a lot more units. I felt like the list itself was well balanced. It didn't have a crazy number of drops like when I was deploying first, and I found that in practice, but in theory, that it was more about the theory. So in terms of list development, 2 Archons was 150 some points because I had a blast pistol, Huskblade, so almost a full segment there. In elites, I had 1 incubi unit, which was 80 points, and then 1 raider that the incubi went, that's 80 points. Because anytime I bought a dedicated transport, I counted it as part of that segment. So an incubi with a raider, that was 160 points. Then I had to spend about 650 points on troops, including transports for the troops. So, I started with, 2 10-man or 3 10-man units of Cabalite Warriors and Raiders, and I tweaked the points here and there. It ended up being 5 Cabalite Warrior units, 2 5-mans with blasters and venoms, 2 10-mans, 1 with a blaster, 1 without a blaster in Raiders, and 1 9-man with no blaster in a Raider. Their Raiders had splinter racks, so they were a little bit more expensive Raiders. However, the splinter racks came in handy. Sometimes I'd get 4, 5 extra hits in, which was pretty neat. And then that's where the Poison Tongue thing came into practice, because I'd get more hits, and then I would be able to have a chance to reroll more ones when they were rerolling to wound, which was pretty handy. And then the fast attack. This is where I didn't use a full segment. It was just 1 unit of Scourge with Haywire Blasters. Mostly because I only have the 1 unit painted, and that's kind of why I picked them. But all in all, it was the 90 some points, so less, about half a segment or so, which then meant I had some extra points left over. And I like my Ravagers, so I was able to squeeze in 2 Ravagers. I looked at the points, and I was able to squeeze in the 3rd Ravager. So I had 4 Raiders. Yeah, 4 Raiders, 2 Venoms, 3 Ravagers, the Scourge, the Incubi, the Archons, the bunch of Cabalite Warriors. I've got 50 Cabalite Warrior bodies, almost, which is a lot of Cabalite Warriors, when you think about it. And no Vect, which was the biggest hurdle for me to get over mentally. The fact that I didn't have Vect and my tanks didn't have a 6+ Feel No Pain. And I was kind of missing that Feel No Pain the entire way through the tournament, which is why I think that if you take tanks with Blackheart and then put Poison Tongue inside, I think that would be the like secret sauce. So why my Kabalite War is so bare bones? So I could have more guys, really. I wanted to make the most. I wanted to make the most of the Poison Tongue stratagem. So as long as they had the splinter rifles, you know, not only were they using Poison Tongue more often, but they were also using the splinter racks more often, which is pretty cool. And then when they would get out of their transports and be within 6 inches of an Archon, they get reroll 1s to hit as well. So then they're getting reroll 1s to hit, reroll 1s to wound. Like, it was great, even against things like tanks, you know, poison, needing 6s, but rerolling 1s. You'd get more than you would imagine. And to answer your question, Dimitri, in terms of anti-tank, you know, I did table a 3-knight list, you know, big knight and 2 medium knights. And it was because of the disintegrated cannons mostly. Good use of Haywire on the Scourge with Fire and Fade to make sure that he couldn't retaliate against them. And a Phantasm grenade launchers. Yeah, to do some like extra mortal wounds here and there, which is pretty handy to kind of finish them off. It did take me a little longer to finish off some of the knights, but and then the blast pistol on the Archon. Like, the blasters did help, you know, but in that game, I had 2 blasters that were out of commission pretty much the whole game, because I had 2 little 5-man units I put on the back objectives, and I pushed forward with my whole army, and I had 1 raider with a Dark Lance, but that Dark Lance like didn't do anything pretty much all tournament, so it would have been better with a disintegrated cannon anyway. Long story short, it was about the synergy of the list. It was about blocking and screening, because I had so many units I could afford to lose pretty much my whole army and still win the game. And it was about using the strategies and tactics. So deploying very aggressively, seeing if I would go first or second, and immediately spending 2 points to redeploy. If I was going first, I'd usually redeploy to stack my deck in one area of the battlefield. If I was going second, I redeployed to protect myself. Now, I did go first every single time at the event, even though going second in ITC is usually better. I found that I loved being able to hit the enemy really hard, and using that redeploy really came in handy. And I only had 8 command points, so command point usage was very important. -1 to hit on my raiders or tanks would get used every once in a while. Fire and Fade was a big one I used. The Phantasm grenade launcher I only used twice in the games. And other than that, it was just focusing fire and wiping out things with disintegrators and with poison weaponry. And just because those venoms are pretty cool with the Poison Tongue as well. Especially within 6 inches of an Archon, rerolling 1s, hit and wound, like, it's pretty neat. If you have any other questions, let me know. I hope this was useful. I'm going to be developing this concept more. But it was very entertaining to play this list. Very mind spicy. It wasn't as mind-numbing as just putting a bunch of Coven units that just don't die up front. And it was really, I really enjoyed playing that list. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I am Scary. Thanks, guys.